want to be that friend that when people eventually get to share maybe something good happening in their lives, they just expect an attitude from you because they know sooner or later you're going to hit on them. That's bad behavior. It's bad character. Stop it. Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ayobami Esther Temidayo and thank you for clicking on this one. Today we'll be diving into a topic that affects us at some point or the other: comparison. If you're new here, you're welcome. Please hit the subscribe button. Also click on the bell icon so you don't miss any video moving forward. And with that being said, let's jump right in. We live in a world of constant comparison, don't we? With social media showcasing the highlights of people's life, it's easy for us to feel like we're falling short. So how do we overcome the trap of comparison and embrace our journey with joy and confidence? Step number one: shift your focus. Instead of focusing on other people, shift your focus inwards. Take time to reflect on who you are and what you have. Comparing yourself with other people not only distracts you from the blessings that you currently enjoy, which you do not see, but it also undermines God's plans for your life. I want to use these Bible stories of David and Joseph to make an illustration. So we know that chronologically Joseph happened before David, but let's assume for this purpose that Joseph and David happened at the same time, right? So they were in the same era, and let's even bring it home where Joseph and David are Christians who attend the same church and are both loving God and serving him in the capacities that they can. And one very Sunday, maybe the man of God or a spiritual head over them comes and says, there is something about the both of you. You're going to almost similar places. So God's plan for you is that you eventually end up in the palace, right? And so, the both of them would be thrilled and be happy. Oh, God is very intentional about me. Take a look at the good plans that he has for me. But bear in mind here that if you read further on their story, you'll find that their journeys to get into the palace are different. David's encounters and experiences were totally different from Joseph's experiences. So for Joseph, the very first experience he had after God had given him a picture of what he wanted to do with his life, where he saw in a dream his brother's sheaves bow to his sheaves, and the sun, moon, and star bowing to him, and all of that. The very first experience he had was opposition from family members. His brothers no longer liked him after he shared the dreams. They no longer wanted him to be a part of their company, and even his father challenged him. For David, it was an entirely different experience. After the prophet Samuel had anointed him as king over Israel, though he had not yet been announced, the next thing we saw was the picture of Goliath, the story of Goliath. And David conquered Goliath, even though he was a shepherd, but he wasn't well trained as a warrior. But that became like the beginning of his fame and his story. And so after David had killed Goliath, we saw recorded in scriptures that his fame went all over the place. The whole of Israel got to know about David. Women sang and said Saul killed his thousands and David killed 10,000. We see here that while Joseph was experiencing adversity and opposition, David, on the other hand, was accepted and his fame was being spread abroad. Like I said, we're merging these stories together for the purpose of an illustration. So if you were Joseph and you saw that, or you knew that God wanted almost the same thing for you and David to experience or to have at the end of the day, and then you find that David's experience is pleasurable, is good, is a sweet story to hear compared to yours, where even right in your father's house you're experiencing opposition and all of that, it would have been okay for you to feel like, is God joking with my life? Like, is God playing? Joseph in this case must have felt like David was having it all good. It was going on smoothly for him, while him here on the other hand is experiencing opposition. And here is the thing: God created us specially. He created us in such a unique way that he has a special purpose for each and every person, right? So don't expect God to duplicate the things or the events happening in other people's life and paste it in yours, because you were uniquely and specially created. I love this verse of scriptures, Psalm 139 verse 13 and 14, I think, that says, you knew my inward parts and I'll praise you, God, because I'm wonderfully and fearfully made, right? So God made you. God took his time. He's an intentional creator, right? So he took his time in creating you. Don't expect it. God won't do that. He cannot carry somebody's life and say, okay, this is exactly what you're actually coming down on earth to play, because you were uniquely created and formed. Another thing here is to minimize how much you look outside. Yes, I know we have social media for the reason of connecting with our friends and family members, and just having updates on things happening in their lives, right? But sometimes it can tap out the joy and contentment that we should feel within, because if you're going to see 10 posts, probably 8 or 9 of them will be the highlights of people's life, the good things happening in their lives, the new job that they just landed, the promotion that they just have, they are now out of the country and all of that, and you're just here feeling like, am I the only one who nothing good is happening to in this season? So social media might for some reason want to sap out the joy and contentment that we have. So it's on us to intentionally curate what we listen to, what we hear, what to feed our souls and our spirits on, because it has an effect on you at the end of the day. The second point is to embrace your journey. So in our journey of life, you would have different experiences. There will be good times, there will be bad times, there will be seasons where you just feel like, can I continue to live in this moment? And other times when you're just like, can we just get past this, because it's not pleasurable, you don't like it, you don't enjoy it at all, but it's all a part of the journey into becoming you, right? I listened to an interview of someone that I really, 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 really love and admire. This woman was being interviewed, and the host asked her at some point, because she shared her story on how she eventually became this person that we all celebrate and love, right? And the host asked her, she said, if there was something about this story, or if there was something about your journey that you would like to change, what is it going to be? And at this point, I was anticipating her response, because I just felt like, when you hear people's story and like, oh, can take this part off, we can take this part off, when we merge them together, it now becomes a very beautiful, wholesome story, right? And then she said nothing. So it got me. I was like, what do you mean nothing? Like, all of those delays and disappointments you experienced, the unpleasurable times, how would you say nothing? And she said that if you take out some of those things, or all of those things, eventually you would have a different outcome, because all of the delays, the good times, the bad times, the disappointments she experienced, the unplanned events and happenings, it was a summation, or it is a summation of the person that she now is. So if you alter that story, you're actually altering the outcome, you're altering the results. So I just took time to let that sink in, because sometimes you feel like, this thing that is happening to me, like, what does God really want to bring out of it? But you have no idea, because at the end of the day, he's the master planner. He knows the end of our lives even from the beginning. So your experiences, be it good or bad, is forming and making you. And our response to these experiences, we have two responses. We can either say, oh, God doesn't love me, he's not intentional about me, good things are happening to other people, and I'm here in a season when it feels like I'm stagnant, I'm not making progress. Or your other response could be that God is bringing out something out of this experience. And that's the mindset that believers should have, that none of our experiences will go to waste. If you take a look at David's life again, at some point he was a shepherd, at some point he had to train to be a warrior, at some point he was a musician, eventually became a king and prophet. So all of these seasons, God made good use of them. So it's never a waste that you have experiences, be it good or bad. Also remember that our paths are never meant to be identical. I said earlier that we have an intentional creator, right? So instead of looking at people's life and longing for their experiences or what they currently have happening in their lives, learn to embrace your own journey and find joy and contentment in your path. The next point here is to rejoice with others. Yes, it's not happening for you yet, but you have people around you that it seems like their life is entirely perfect. Rejoice with them. Learn to be happy, learn to be truly happy, and rejoice with friends when they get to share good news or the big wins that they have in their lives. There are a couple of times I've had to tell myself, Ayoba, you are not a witch, you are not a witch. You will rejoice with them that rejoice, because you don't want to be that friend that when people eventually get to share maybe something good happening in their lives, they just expect an attitude from you, because they know sooner or later you're going to hit on them. That's bad behavior. It's bad character. Stop it. Also understand that life is in seasons. I continue to tell myself that I cannot compare my seed to someone else's harvest, because at some point they also planted their seed. So if it's their season of harvest, it just makes sense to celebrate with them because they've done their work. If people put in effort into getting something done and they get rewarded for it, they deserve it. So why are you hating? In a corporate world, no one gets a promotion if they've not shown up consistently and are diligent in their work, right? So if they put in the effort and they get rewarded for it, it just makes sense as a friend for you to celebrate them and rejoice with them. And you can also take a cue from it that if I also put in the work and show up consistently, then I should expect a reward. The fourth point here is community, which is an offshoot from the previous point. Surround yourself with people who continue to encourage and speak life into you. We're never meant to do life alone. I remember that I learned this in my final year in school. I think, yes, 2021. I was in school then, and I was lying on my bed and I just heard it is not good for man to be alone. I was like, God, are we bringing marriage talk now? Like, I have an year project to deal with. So it felt like I was trying to teach God. You know, when you feel like, "Ah, God, I know some things too." So it felt like, why are we bringing marriage just when there are other things that seem to be priority to me at that point, right? And yeah, almost immediately as I was having that thought, the Holy Spirit had to stop me. And it just highlighted to me that God never intended for man to do life alone. I know there's a part of society where we get to celebrate people who claim to be self-made, and that in itself is a huge fallacy. There is no way you can say you're self-made, because even biologically, like, you did not drop from heaven. Even if you dropped from heaven, someone had to throw you. Someone just had to either offended God or one angel. You just had to be thrown out of heaven, right? Never meant to do life alone. We're never meant to struggle or to go about our struggles alone. Also, we're never meant to enjoy our blessings and our wins alone. Scripture tells us that two are better than one, because if one falls, the other person can pick him up. But pity any man who, when he falls, there is no one to help him. So prioritize your relationships. Be intentional about the community that you plant yourself in. Look out for friends who speak life into you, and also be that kind of friend to the other person. Thank you for joining me on this one. If this video resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments. Also, do well to share with your friends, because I believe they will find it helpful like you did. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you get notified on every upload. And until next time, keep shining as the light that you are. I continue to tell myself that I cannot compare my seed to someone else. Wow.